From San Antonio, Texas, home of the Alamo, the Riverwalk, and the World Heritage San Antonio Missions, this is the Exit Planning Coach podcast with John F. Dini. Designed to help advisors who work with business owners, John talks with top professionals in the exit planning field about best practices, marketing tips, and how to be more effective when working with owners. Now, here's John F. Dini.
Welcome to the Exit Planning Coach podcast. I'm John F. Dini, and my guest today is Elizabeth Mower. Elizabeth is part of our founder series, people that have really been influential and seminal in the creation of what we now know is the widespread exit planning industry. So we're going to talk to Elizabeth about how she came to do that. Today, she is the founder of entreVector, which she will also explain to us. But previously, she was the president of the Business Enterprise Institute, well known as BEI, and she's the original designer of their Epic software. So welcome, Elizabeth. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me, John. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, we've always had fun together and really enjoy talking to you. So we're going to start out talking about your life.
Okay.
What did you do? Okay, you grew up, you went to school, and then between going to school, or at least at a high school, and winding up at BEI, what did you do in between?
Well, I'm a Texan, same as you. So I grew up in Texas, and I spent a fair number of years at the University of Texas at Austin. The last thing that I did there was their JD MBA program. So I couldn't decide whether I wanted to go to sort of the MBA business route or the law school route. And then I found out you could do both at the same time, and I signed up for that. So I had been out of school and working for a while, but young person job where it wasn't really a career. And so I decided to go back to graduate school, and I did that and wanted to sort of explore what the options were for business and law in a combined career. And I didn't really know what that was going to look like. I ended up deciding that I wanted to practice law. I could have gone into the business world, whatever that is, probably consulting or something, and dragged my JD along with me. But I went the other route, and I wanted to practice law and take my MBA along with me. I moved to Denver, Colorado, and managed to get myself a job with the premier boutique business client law firm in Denver. It was called Minor and Brown. And it specialized in working with privately held businesses and their owners. And so it did all the different kinds of things that a law firm would do if that was the client base, which I won't bore you with. But I learned a lot in that role. And I was able to learn all types of business transactions, but I also learned exit planning. I learned the 7-step exit planning process. I was trained by a gentleman named John Brown and all of the other more senior people in that firm who did that kind of work. So I ended up being a business lawyer, which meant contracts and licensing agreements and just all different kinds of business law type stuff. And I also did this planning thing, which turned out to be the most fun. And it was fun because all the clients were different. All the clients had interesting problems. No two situations were the same. And I got to learn from the legal side how to sort of design and implement comprehensive plans for business owning clients, usually with an eye toward having them separate from their ownership of the business, either, as transition to family, to employees, to an outside buyer. But also everything that comes before that, I was working on, and so I did that kind of work for about 8 or 9 years, and I eventually ended up leaving private practice and moved over to work at Business Enterprise Institute, as you mentioned, BEI, and I just went there to sort of build software and build some programs. My original title was like Director of Special Projects. It was literally just a made up job. But BEI had been created by John Brown, the co-founder of the law firm that I had been working in. So he had retired from that law firm a few years earlier, but he and I were in conversation, and I said, okay, I'll come over and we'll just build these various things. And he liked to joke that and it is true. He told me, he said, I don't want you to commit for your whole life, but I think probably 12 or 18 months we'll get all this done. Actual conversation that we had. And I said, oh, okay, I'll just come and, I'll do this. And I like to create things. And so I came over to build software and programs and things. And
Now, just, are you a code jockey? Do you write code?
do I what?
Do you write code?
No, I have
Oh,
no idea how to, almost zero.
okay.
Almost zero. So what I was doing is I'm managing people who do know how to write code and telling them what the things need to be. So basically, I'm filling the brain of what became the Epic software. Actually, it was probably named Epic before I took it on. I'm filling the brain of Epic with planning knowledge. So I'm collecting it and organizing it and putting it into usable pieces. And I'm building planning logic. So I'm saying, okay, well, if the business has these characteristics, then the software should basically suggest that its user consider a few different kinds of what we called recommendations. So a recommendation was like, used to describe it in training as like one plank in a bridge that took you from where you are today to where you want to go. And so a single recommendation was a very discrete planning strategy that by itself wasn't going to do anything, but when you lined it up next to all the other recommendations in your plan, it would make a strategy to take a business owner from where they are today to where they want to be. And I'm doing that. And so basically building content inside of the Epic software and then building the logic that would help if you've done a lot of planning, and I had done a lot of planning by that point, you can sort of pick up the patterns where if the business is beyond a certain size, if their exit date is too soon or too far away, if their management team looks like this instead of like that, we kind of know whether particular planning strategies are going to be effective or not. So we built a lot of that logic into that software so that people who were newer to planning, people who didn't have a lot of time, people who had a team member that was going to generate a plan document for their clients, all different kinds of situations where they would need the software to have some intelligence. It would work completely differently today using AI, and it would be actually much easier. But at the time, you had to build the logic line by line and tell the software, go look at this answer and that answer and the other answer. And if they look like this combination, suggest that the client consider the following recommendations. That's what we did. So, and I built and rebuilt that software multiple times because I ended up staying with BEI for 15 years. So 18 months, also the same as 15 years. There was a lot to do. There was always something new to do. And so I sort of just kept taking on new things and building new things. And by the end of that 15 years, I'm then responsible for building and managing and changing features in the Epic software, plus other sort of what in another business would be considered product development. So whatever BEI's customers were using, I was responsible for the teams that were building those things and the customer service features of BEI as a company and the internal operations of the business. I was responsible for.
I was going to say, you weren't just responsible for building things. I mean, you wound up being president and partner in the company. Yeah.
So, and those were sort of, I was doing, sort of part of the company where it was operations, products and services, and customer service. And then my other partner, Jared Johnson, was responsible for the sales and marketing teams. That was his expertise. And John Brown, still the founder, was continued to be involved in that company in sort of the traditional kind of visionary role. And it was great fun. And so taking that company in new directions and developing new product or service ideas and having to figure out how to deliver on those, it just was absolutely a great privilege and really a very, very enjoyable and satisfying way to spend 15 years.
Good. Good. That sounds, well, certainly I met you uh, probably about a third of the way along that path.
If that
And
late, it might have been sooner.
it could
Yeah.
have been, yeah.
In my mind, you were
Um,
there from the very beginning.
oh, well, I, when did you go on
I
board with BEI?
I joined their team in about 2007, I want to say.
Okay, I came along about 2010, so just
Huh. Okay.
a
Just
little
right
bit
after
along.
that. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right, but you're not doing that anymore. We're going to talk about, as soon as we take a break, we're going to talk about what you're doing now, which is really fascinating. I've been looking at your stuff and it's very, very creative. I think it's exciting and I'm anxious to discuss it. So we'll come back in just a minute after the thing that pays for the whole podcast.
How would your practice survive if only 25% of your clients were happy with your work? How many referrals would you get? Would you advertise that success rate? Over the last decade, both the Exit Planning Institute and PwC have surveyed owners and found that 75% were profoundly unhappy a year after their exits. In 10 years, the exit planning industry has done little to fix this issue. Business owners need purpose, direction, and activity after exiting. Planning for that starts with your very first coaching conversation. We work with advisors who believe that clients should be happy after exiting. Exit Map is a structured discovery process that helps you have deeper conversations about client options, objectives, and life after the business. We help you launch better transitions. Take a test drive at exitmap.com.
Welcome back to the Exit Planning Coach podcast. My guest is Elizabeth Mower. She was the president of BEI and the leader in the creation of the Epic software, which was certainly the first exit planning software in the marketplace. But now she is the founder of entreVector. And uh, as part of the founder conversation, I want to talk about what she's doing because she sees some new things coming down the pike. If she was an early adopter in exit planning, she's an early adopter in her new venture. So, Elizabeth, what is that?
Okay, it's a few different things, John, and I've been doing sort of two main things through entreVector, which is a company that I started 2 or 3 years ago. So two main things that have been happening over there. One is that I've been able to get back into direct planning with business clients. It's on a fairly limited basis, and I'm basically come in as a hired gun when there's a situation that requires sort of a level of exit planning or business planning experience that isn't available otherwise. So I don't really participate in the exit planning marketplace per se, but there are people who call and ask for my help, and I end up getting to work with business owners, which is still just extremely rewarding work. I really like all of the businesses that I work with. They have really interesting problems. They have really interesting creative ideas for solving them. And so that's been just incredibly enjoyable. So I've been doing that. That gives me this sort of line of sight into what's happening with privately owned businesses, with family businesses, with aging baby boomer owners, with millennial next gen leadership teams. It's giving me sort of this direct contact with those individuals and people in those roles. And so that's where I sort of pick up a lot of my ideas for doing new things. then I'm also, while I'm doing this direct planning work, and I guess I should say there's kind of two things. So my planning work is not comprehensive. So there's a bunch of areas where I am not spending a lot of time. And so I just talk to you and talk to other advisors to find out what's happening in those areas. Because the two things that I seem to end up working on all the time are basically internal ownership transfer, creative methods to get that done. So if you're doing just a traditional kind of old-fashioned approach to an internal ownership transfer, probably you're not going to call me, but maybe there's a complication. Maybe we have to get rid of somebody before we can add somebody in. Maybe there's a volatility in the company, or there's a timing situation that we have to deal with. So unusual or particularly challenging internal ownership transfers, I'm seeing a lot of that. And then I do a lot of sort of high creativity incentive compensation planning. And so,
Okay. Before we go further, this is an advisor to advisor podcast. How do people get in touch with you if they have complex, terrible situations that they don't want
yes.
to deal with?
It can be difficult, and I like the work. So I don't take over clients. I do come in as sort of like on a project. I take a look. If I think I can help, I do. So you would just go to my website, which is entreVector. So it's the first part of entrepreneur, ENTRE, and then vector, like as in the mathematical concept of both direction and magnitude, VECTOR. So entrevector.com, and just hit the contact us. I get all of those, and so I respond to them personally.
Okay.
Shockingly, there's not a team of 85 people responding to my contact us form. I do respond to
I'm shocked.
everybody.
Shocked.
No, I know. I do respond to everybody that directly. And so thanks for asking. The thing that I am having a lot of conversations about is this creative incentive planning as well, which is, either an advisor doesn't know how to do incentive planning, like doesn't feel really comfortable. It doesn't just roll off the tongue sort of, or come immediately into their head once they see what the situation is. So they just want somebody to come in and kind of just get it done. And I can do that. Or, they have a situation that seems unusual and none of the traditional incentive planning approaches seems to be a good fit. And so I might be able to say, well, if you creatively sort of bundle this part of this thing and this part of that thing, then I think you could make a go of it. And I can leave you with a summary of what an incentive plan should be and why it's going to do that. And that can be handed off to the lawyers. I don't practice law anymore, so I don't draft any documents, but I do really good summaries of what needs to happen. And incentive planning is still a thing. So now I'm in entreVector. I'm being hired personally to just come and do planning on internal ownership transfers and creative approaches to incentive planning. And I'm watching, talking to clients, talking to other advisors about what's happening. And in internal ownership transitions, I'm not seeing actually a ton of new things. I'm doing them in a little bit, my clients are doing them in a little bit of a creative way. And a lot of the fundamentals of that are still basically the same. So I'm not seeing a ton of innovation. And those things that I have seen, I think they work okay too. So people call me with new ideas, and they're often just sort of like a reframing of an old idea, which is totally, I'm good with that. So over in incentive planning, I've really noticed a lot of gaps. So the short sort of story on incentive planning is that the kind of incentive planning that I always did, that I've spent more than 25 years designing and implementing for clients, if I were continuing to do that today, I would not be serving my clients. Incentive planning is in desperate need of a reboot, in my opinion. And there are a few things going on with it. There are advisors who are only focusing on just the top level management leadership team in the incentive plan, and then doing that as part of their planning engagement. and either not asking or not having any way to address everyone else in the company. And we're seeing a lot of businesses with, so all the things you've seen in the conferences, difficulty in finding good people, difficulty in in understanding their workforce, disengaged workforce, disconnect between the Gen X and baby boomer leadership segment of the company and the millennial and Gen Z workforce in the business. And so let me pause for a second. John, you see this all the time. Am I right? That there's
Well, and we read
problems?
the articles about quiet quitting
Yes.
and the high percentage of people that feel disconnected from the organization, and the difficulties in dealing with remote work expectations. Yes, tons of it,
Yeah.
and I love going back to you know pre-Christian Greece. There's certainly great quotes by Aristotle that talks about the rotten younger generation and how they have no respect and no work ethic. So it's not a new problem per se, but
No, but it feels new and it feels hard. And, so I'm talking to an advisor who's out in Utah, and all of his clients are sort of the same kind of clients that you and I work for. They're successful, they're profitable, they have a bunch of employees, but they're not giant. They're not the titans of their space. And he says, my clients are already paying their people as much as they can afford to pay them. And it's really not
Mhm.
enough. Their
Mhm.
retention rates are not where they need them to be. Their ability to move people up through the organization, develop them into higher levels of leadership is not where it needs to be. If they have somebody good, they're having trouble keeping that person around. So I'm having these kinds of conversations with my planning clients, with other advisors, and I'm thinking, I just really assumed somebody did something about this. I went to all the sessions, the keynote speakers, talking about the differences in the generations and what they think is important. And when I looked around for my clients, nobody had solved that
Mhm.
problem. So of course, if it
But we
doesn't,
like to talk about it.
we do like to talk about it. And I have done exactly as much. I hope there's no millennial and Gen Z on the podcast. I have done the sort of, like being frustrated with my inability to meet those employees where they are and and give them the opportunity to be their best self. I have been frustrated in that situation, but I have now decided that I am done being frustrated, and my clients need to be done being frustrated, and we need to start doing something. So on the side, I started building another program. It's very small. It's for business owners, it's for businesses to just pick up on their own. And it is a program that a business can adopt. So it's DIY. You don't need me. You don't need a lot of money. You don't even need an advisor, although I would like advisors to recommend that their clients consider doing something like this. So it is a program that a business can adopt to build connection and engagement between their leadership team and their employees. It's called Vector Connect, and it gives the company step-by-step instructions and videos and downloadable tools to build engagement and connection inside the company, and it uses the vehicle of community impact projects to do that. So go back to your keynote speech that you sat through 50 times. They said they want to have purpose, they want to have meaning, they want to know that there's something bigger than just what they're doing in their job. But if you work in payables or putting things in boxes and shipping them, or sweeping the floor, or assembling, I have a friend who's a graphic designer who takes the digital assets and assembles them into like all the signs that are inside your restaurant and the menus. And it's hard work, and somebody has to do it because it's really precise. And is there, does that friend see a lot of meaning and purpose? I don't know. But what if the business could say, every 90 days, we're all going to get together and we're going to do something useful and good. And then we're going to take the results of that. It's going to bring us all together. We're all going to feel happy. It's not going to take a lot of time. It's not going to take a lot of money from the company. The owner gets to set the boundaries so they don't have to worry that people are going to go off the rails. The employees are going to do all the work, and it's going to take a very small amount of time. And at the end of 90 days, you've done something for your community. You take the results, the photos, the numbers, the outcomes from whatever that is, and you hand it to the marketing team who's dying for content. And you
Hmm.
say to the marketing team, here, share this with the world. So now you're building your brand. And what my clients were doing 20 years ago is they're doing good things was very separate from their business ownership.
Sure.
Do you agree? Or
Yeah, very, very much so. Yeah.
so they were all doing it, but they kept it very separate. We don't do that anymore. Now we can bring it all together. Your company can be a good citizen. It won't prevent, I have a program, it won't prevent people from getting their jobs done, which is the most important thing. We need
Hmm.
people to do their jobs. But what if it makes them feel more, what if they make connections with other people in the company that can help them when they have a question? What if they feel like this is a company that's doing more than the other competitor that I could go to work for? What if top talent is researching the company when deciding whether or not to take the job that they've offered and finds out that this company does more, participates in its community, tries to promote something positive beyond the walls of its business, and decides to take the job because that's the company that they want to work for, because by 2030, 75 to 80% of the workforce will be millennial and Gen Z.
Hmm.
Make our workplaces someplace where they give their best. They are humans. They will perform. They will do great things if we configure our businesses to make that possible. It's just a different environment than there was when I started in this practice. And so that's my sort of baseline. That's in pilot testing right now. If somebody wants to learn about that, you can see it's called Vector Connect. It's on my website. But also, I would like to hear from other advisors. What are their business clients doing to engage and motivate people below the top level of leadership? What can we do to support the broader workforce, to take our incentive planning that I've typically done, and instead of just keeping it at the very top level of the company, is there a way I can build an incentive compensation uh, system for my business client that is more than just top level incentive planning?
It's funny, not funny, but just in support of what you're saying. Um, I still run, as you know, a couple peer groups,
Mhm.
and one of the owners in one of my peer groups, very, very blue collar business. Okay, scrap metal recycling,
Mhm.
loading train cars with giant cranes and crushing things up. And it's very unusual. There's not too many female owners in that industry,
Yep.
but she did a Build-A-Bike day, and the astonishing results. I mean, these are, and again, remember, you know Texas, we're in San Antonio.
Yeah.
I mean, for at least 75% of our crew, English is a second language, and just overwhelmingly positive results. They
Mhm.
were thrilled to death. And most of them had never done anything like that before.
Mhm.
And she talked about the result in the group. And there's another member of the group who has a lumber manufacturing operation. Again, very similar, not clientele, employee base.
Employee base, right.
Yeah. And he said, gee, I don't know if that would work, but oh, what the heck, if you got such great results out of it, we'll give it a try. And in his case, he brought somebody in that did Build-A-Bike days. And again, astonished with the results, astonished with the level of participation, astonished by the enthusiasm. by the percentage of participation, and all of it. So
Mhm.
certainly there's, I've seen evidence very recently and very real about how big a thing this is.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that because I talked with another advisor the other day and he said, and I said, do you see this, disconnect or disengagement in the business clients that you work with? And he said, I do, but and I said, are your clients frustrated about it? Because I'm still trying to learn sort of what are the, you know, what are the factors that are most likely to be at play? So I'm just asking questions. And I said, what are are your clients frustrated? And he said, yeah, but I just tell them there's nothing you can really do. Uh, for every 1,000 employees, you'll get 5 that are good. The rest will probably suck. I thought,
Oh God.
is that really what we're going to tell business clients?
Oh, I want to retire today.
Is that
Yeah.
really what, that's, I don't, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with telling my clients that, um, well, probably your employees are just going to be terrible. I'm not comfortable with that. The businesses that I'm working with, we're using we're using an approach that I'm calling the comp stack. And we're saying, okay, for your business, let's build, instead of your tech stack, which is your technology
Hmm.
solutions that you assemble a constellation of them that help you deliver your business. So now I'm doing with my clients something that I'm calling the comp stack. And there are many things you could do. This community impact programs is only one of many things. It's not going to solve anything, but it didn't exist before, and now it does because I built it. So yay. And then there are many other things you could be doing. I have a client that's going to take their mandatory training that they're putting employees through, and they're going to move it from something that employees have to do over to something that they get to do, and they're going to list it as part of their comp stack. Then in the training, they're going to include tiny little modules. This is all in person, so I don't know what you call it, just moments of training for departments that the employee is not in, basically,
Hmm.
to give them more awareness. Then they're going to create, if you've completed a certain amount of training, I thought this is a really good idea, so I'm stealing it and I'm giving it away to everyone for free. They have a founder who's kind of like a celebrity in their industry. He's very cool, he's very dynamic. Everybody would love to be in the room with him. Employees don't get access to him because he's important and very busy. And they're going to, people who complete a certain amount of their training are going to be eligible to participate in basically a short masterclass with this founder. And they'll be able to say, well, I did a master class with so and so, very important person in this industry. And so their comp stack is going to include all this sort of like making you better, helping you develop into something more than just a person repeating an activity. And one of my other clients, their comp stack is going to have a big component in it of mentoring. This is the culture that they want to build in their company. And they're a general contractor. So they're in the construction industry. Lots of us have clients in the construction industry, and um, they're doing a feature in their comp stack that's it's going to be sort of mentoring throughout the organization. And pretty much everybody is going to be both a mentor and a mentee.
Hmm.
They're going to have a structured way they're still working on their ideas for this. So it's not finished yet. But they're going to come up with a structured, systematic, repeatable, consistent way of delivering this mentor-mentee experience to everyone in their company, and their people are super excited about it. So I don't know what a particular company needs until I talk to them, but I think in addition to my key employee incentive planning, my sort of Vector Connect program to connect employees with leadership through the vehicle of community impact projects. There's also a bunch of other stuff that we should all be talking about with our clients. We don't have to be experts in it. There's a bunch of things I don't know how to do, but I can find people who know how to do it, and I want to leave them with a comp stack that they feel like, okay, this is how we're going to recruit and retain important, valuable people. We're going to develop them through the organization. So that's where I think incentive planning is going. That's what I think we're all going to be doing as advisors. And I think if we're not doing it, we might be doing a disservice to our clients.
Wow. I mean, it's visionary, it's strategic, it's hard-headed business. And it's no less than I would expect from you after knowing you for after knowing
Yeah.
you for the last 15 or 18 years. So
Mhm.
great. And I know I've seen your video, which is very clear, and makes it plain, the whole DIY program and how they can rotate through and how they can come up with these things. And that's on Vector Connect, on entreVector rather,
Yep, it's at
.com.
entrevector.com.
Yeah.
You can there's only a few different services that we offer at entrevector, and one of them is Vector Connect. But a person can always just hit the contact us page and just ask me a question or
Yeah.
get in touch with me
And the
we're on
concept
LinkedIn.
yeah. And the comp stack is a great idea. I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
The group that has these two people, and by the way, it has a third business owner who runs a national home care franchise, and has a very involved uh, training program, voluntary, recognition based, for caregivers
Mhm.
to work their way because it's non-medical.
Mm.
So, I mean, it'll be very interesting in this group, and I'm sending them all there to start talking, and we're going to start having conversations about their comp stacks because they've all, each on their own journey, have discovered that there's a lot of value in these things.
Right,
So,
and they're all different. Isn't that kind of still why it's fun? Because you and I are going to see every client have a different comp stack than the last. There will be lots of things that we're familiar with. We can partner with organizations or people who have expertise in different things. I'm spending a lot of time talking to them. But John, do you have any clients that do you have any clients that have solved the people thing pretty well, and you feel like they are a great example
mm,
of doing the right things for their business, that are having good people that are developing into better workers, that are engaged and are performing at the top? I mean,
I'll have to look in a different way because it's in the nature of the peer group that you don't come in to talk about the things that are going right.
oh, yeah, valid.
You know, so so but I will sharpen my perception and start watching for those things for you. So
Yeah, I hear you.
yeah. So we've got to move on, but it has been an absolute joy talking to you. It's very exciting. Once again, you are on the cutting edge. You have a vision of what is coming. Just like 20 years ago, that vision involved baby boomers and asset transition. Now you're talking about the human aspect of it, which being exit map is very close to our heart. I mean, that's the part of the planning world that we work in.
Mhm.
So, Elizabeth, I want to thank you immensely for coming on. It's been terrific, and we will be sending people your way, and they need to go to entrevector.com to see that video and just see the other stuff you're doing. And if they need somebody that is really one of the most astute planners that I've ever worked with. So thanks a bunch.
I appreciate that, John, and I'm a fan of your podcast. So thanks for putting super high quality content out there. I follow your podcast and your webinars and your emails.
Oh,
So
well,
well
thank you
done,
very
Exit
much.
Matt.
Okay, thanks a lot. Have a
Okay, thanks,
terrific
John.
day.
Thank you. See you next time.